Okay, so to give you an idea of what's going on right now this minute, I'm running what's called a Google Hangouts on air. I'm standing in front of the Western Bay referees meeting, and included in the call are referees from Taupo, from Whakatane, and from Rotorua. So the other cool thing about this whole application is A, it's free. B, it's making a live recording as we speak on our YouTube channel. So maybe somebody in the room might want to duck out and jump onto YouTube and have a quick squiz at and see what the quality of it is. But the other cool thing about this application is once this broadcast ends, YouTube will upload the entire video to our YouTube channel. So there are literally now 3 ways in which you people can get access to the education component of our referees meeting. You can do the best option, which is what you've all done, is chose to turn up to the meeting. And the good thing about turning up to these meetings is you get to participate in the discussions. So that's the best thing. If you don't turn up to the meeting, but for some reason you could be on Matakana Island or somewhere where you can't physically get to the meeting, you can literally watch this presentation live on YouTube whilst it's happening. And the third option obviously is you can't get to the meeting, you can't watch it live, but you happen to be starting work at 2 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. You can spend 45 minutes watching the YouTube video tomorrow morning. So that's the pretty cool thing. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run the presentation and then share my screen so that everybody watching this can see the PowerPoint. If I could just have a representative from all of the rooms just yell out that they can see the game setup slides.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. Whakatane?
Yes.
Rotorua?
Yes.
Okay. So all of these presentations were put together by Bryce Lawrence and his high performance team over the Christmas holidays. So Bryce got the 7 professionals to write 8 PowerPoint presentations, which were then distributed amongst all of the REOs across the country. And as a result of that, we now have an entire year's worth of education all coming down from New Zealand's high performance. Not only do we have all of these PowerPoints, but it also means that all of the REOs all around the country and or whoever they choose to deliver these are now delivering the exact same PowerPoint that you're about to be exposed to. So literally the entire country now, in terms of community refereeing, we should all be starting to get on the same page because the message has all come from the same source. The only difference will be the slight angle or tinge that each individual presenter places on these PowerPoints. So the good thing about it is they've even provided presenter notes. So we're literally just going to follow exactly what they've said. So the very first slide that we come to, and this is where you now have to do some work. So for Taupo, Whakatane, Rotorua, you're already in a small group. But for the guys here, I'm going to break you into probably 3 groups, 1 group here, 1 group down the back, and 1 group here. And you guys sitting in that back row, if you can just divide. So if we can get a representative from each of the 3 sub-unions and from a representative from the 3 groups here in Western Bay. We just need a scribe, somebody to write down all the discussions that's going to take place amongst your groups. And I'm going to ask you the question, what does setting up a game mean to you? So on those pieces of paper, can you write down in bullet point form what you believe setting up a game means to you? And I'm going to give you 5 minutes starting from now. So you guys are allowed to have discussions in your sub-unions You can have discussions. Away you go. What does setting up a game mean?
Make sure the rest of Division 1 outputs going to offset our problem. 5 metres down.
What does setting up a game mean to you?
Yes.
Yeah, so we've covered things like meeting the team, kind of ideas of what we want, expectations, feel safe, that sort of stuff. Will be out there in the boots. Discussions. Yeah.
Ring manager? Make sure there's a ring manager there. There's a relevance. Ring manager. And the team's back to
So time for time.
Where's Jamie?
I can see you, Dale. You don't have to worry about your hot list.
I don't think he knows that we're there.
Yeah.
1 minute.
That's one of those questions. Yeah, quick.
No, all games. All games. Only games that are pre-development, first division upwards, and the ring manager.
Oh, but if you've got somebody that you see when you come to every game, because if you're
Senior reserves is never any.
yeah, but if you feel not set up, you need to go to somewhere. At least anyway.
30 seconds.
So ideas of what you want, expectations, field safety, boots, mental state of mind before arriving at ground.
Consistency of delivery.
So that's like one.
Okay, time. You can take your seats.
So on, is that one chicken?
I'll click through. Yeah.
Righto. We'll go around this. We'll go around the areas first. Dale, pick a number between 1 and 4.
3.
Righto, you picked Eastern Bay, so you can go first. What has your group come up with what does setting up a game mean to you? I'm going to write your response so that we don't duplicate. Go.
We talked about the field setup, flags, technical zones, ads on posts.
Yep.
Contacting the event manager. Teams on time, front row players available for pre-match talk.
Yep.
Yeah, and field markings. That was the main stuff that we discussed.
Nothing else?
Not at the moment.
You got nothing else, Dale?
No, that's all we've got at the moment.
You better pick another sub-union to go.
Number 1.
Western Bay. So there's 3 groups here. I'll go with group 2. So somebody needs to come and stand here so that everybody can hear and read off the piece of paper. 5, 4, 3.
We've gone down to personal preparation, so your kit, your gear, getting your things ready the day before, making sure you're all over the time, so leaving yourself plenty of time, make sure there's no changes, making sure everything's all good at home, you've got petrol in your car, you suss your transport, sort of hydration and food plan, review and work on from your last game and put it into your game plan. You've equipped yourself with your training, and then you've got at the field, at the grounds, or possibly even before, you got the prep with the team. So you got the players, captain, coach, and building that rapport and setting expectations, communication prior to the game. There it goes even as far as the scheduling and appointments for the game itself. Communicating out to the referees and ARs, communicating with those ARs as well. Scheduling of the teams, and it's the whole sort of schema of the season, and then we've got venue and facilities and bookings and safety check, and yeah, that was pretty much it, wasn't it? Anything else to add, mate? You sure? Okay, good. Well done, because I couldn't read your writing.
I'll pick another number 1.
Number 2 was picked. That's Central Bay. So can you tell us what you've got? Gary or someone?
Nah, me.
Or who's that?
Deal.
Greg? Yep. What have you got?
Can't see myself. I don't know whether you buggers can see me.
No, we can't see you, but we can hear you. That's all that matters.
Yeah, good. So we were talking initially about making sure setting up games all about setting parameters, standards, and structure to to kick the thing off. Yeah, what? Sorry.
Now you're talking standards.
What? Right. And then some of the main headings were things like under that really were things like your personal preparation, what you want to do to make things happen around that, the timing of your activity to make sure it coincides with what the teams want and your own build-up, and then sort of leading into the structure and what you want as standards around briefing the captains and the front rows and the coaches and that sort of stuff.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And that just leaves King Country.
Yeah, go Pat, Kieran here.
Go ahead. What have you got?
Yep, so we've got, we sort of started right back to when you received your appointment. So sort of once you receive that, it's a bit of mental prep for the weekend ahead. And then sort of most other things have been covered. So another one will be sort of mental state of mind before arriving at the game, or the ground, sorry. And then just sort of running through your expectations, field safety, meeting with the captains and the teams and the coaches, ideas of what you want on the day, and having a chat to ARs if you have any. Right.
So I suppose if we had to categorise our setting up a game, we could literally break it down into two aspects. And it looks like we did really well with one of them, which is pre-game, and we didn't really get a lot in terms of within the first 20 minutes. So I'm literally just going to read to you the notes of what the person who compiled this presentation wanted you to get out of that discussion. At the end of the discussion, you want the rooms to have an idea that game setup is about using the pre-game meetings and the opening 15 to 20 minutes to ensure that players know what boundaries are for the game, your boundaries around scrum, tackle, and line-out. It is also about how you conduct yourself in the changing rooms and how you go about building trust with the key stakeholders within the game. And you highlighted a number of them, the front rows, the captains, but one of the things that Bryce touched on in our presentation last week was also establishing those relationships with whom? Coaches and some key players. So setting up the game also means identifying and starting to work on creating relationships with people, so long as you choose the right people. So the key areas that you're going to set up in your game are the scrum, the tackle, the line out, foul play, offside, and relationships. So again, in those groups that you're in, I'm going to get King Country, if you can deal with the scrum.
Yep.
Eastern Bay, can you deal with the tackle? Central Bay, you can deal with the line out. Western Bay 1, you can deal with foul play. Western Bay 2, deal with offside. And the 18 down here in the corner, if you can deal with relationships. I want you to now spend, knowing what we know about what this PowerPoint presentation is about, can you now spend about 5 minutes bullet pointing the key areas you need to cover in those particular areas, and then we'll come back and you can present back. Is everybody clear on what they're doing?
Yep.
Yep.
New piece of paper, please.
Right.
Okay. No, go to ground.
I do it. Yep. Putting the mark, making sure that everybody's. I often.
Okay, no, go to ground. You release.
What video?
Like one again, one shoulder.
And release. Both tackler and tackler. Release the ball.
Big awesome. Making the one.
your release.
Scrum as well, but I always like
Any other checklist release?
to
Does it roll east west?
Yeah.
Roll to the sidelines?
Yeah, that's probably the way to put it. Lay the foundation in the pre-match, but then also reiterate it and make it scrum. You might know if it's scrum dry track. Well, yeah, saw some super
Yes, or reading to that.
What do you guys see? It's the line here with they're attacking this way. Where you go? Tell me where you go.
Oh, about your bum to your head, I'd call the gate.
The ball go.
I'd say if he's out there and he's out there, that's the gate.
That is the gate. It's the last one. Touch it. What about like that?
Yeah. Out there,
It cuts it down a lot more. Yeah, a lot of teams actually we go into the short gate. Cuts down coming around.
Probably. Go through it again. Yeah.
Should we have a plan?
Clear release. Big clear records of tackle. Yep.
Because once you call set, so you've got to make sure it's steady before bind, and then it's got to be set. So you've got to be steady when you put it bind. Once you put it set, it's going to do one or three things. So just if you're in the board, you can no.
Tackle east west. Yeah. Or that's just
Shoulders cut open.
Oh, I say,
Then you're not pulling them.
you're bound to go down. As soon as I sit, yeah.
well, you must go all the way also.
Sure. You can now find the second one. You can enter
Oh, yeah, okay. Yep.
Then you can
tackle.
the first one. You can put that in.
Numbers?
Your
I do, but guys aren't anymore.
Brother. Hands up.
Yeah, so you're ensuring that what they're doing.
So the halfback standing in behind it.
You're setting a standard about that. Yep.
Yeah, so you can't, yeah, it's still, probably be tight here.
Still go straight.
It'll still go, it still has to go straight. Can't be put over there.
Why? There's no chance.
No, not my central line, he just has to be there. Right.
Sure the scrum's before it.
Yeah.
That can
Basically, if they do that, that's their own fault. So,
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
oh,
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. There's a democracy. We just voted. We just voted.
this is an extension.
There we roll.
Come on, just put a bridle on me.
Quick speed. Halfback.
Cam, you're not doing all the work, are you?
From the ball.
He thought it was straight.
I had heavy trouble with them.
Yeah, that's right. So this is just what I've got here. So suitable front row and replacements. See foundation okay, once set up. Yep. By binding.
That's good for the first 20. Move your position at 3.
See foundation how you want set up. Make sure 9 is ready before you full crouch. Ensure you have it confined. Does it up and down. Ensure steady. Ensure safely in the air. Or 9 inputs without delay.
Yeah, just read that. Just read that.
Yeah.
But it's different. But I think we covered it in the change it.
I just think about it, you come to sit going. It was always as a forward.
Oh, I see.
So this now,
Yeah, the number 8.
Going down this in the sub-unions. Pakatani, you done?
Yes, we are.
Central Bay.
Yep.
King Country.
Yep.
Okay. So, before we start talking about what each one of us had to concentrate on, so obviously we've highlighted
The key conversation.
that the key people that you need to have conversation with. Somebody, I heard someone say front row, obviously the captain. Did anybody have line-out players?
No.
Oh, yeah, we.
Which union had the line-out?
Central Bay.
Who was that?
Central.
Oh, yeah. So did you have any conversations with the line-out players at the front?
Yes, we did. Yeah, get in the gap. And
Yeah, during the game.
Yeah.
All right, I'll come to you in a minute. So what I'm going to ask now is for Western Bay Group 3 to share back to the group the main key people that they were talking to and what they were saying.
So in terms of the key people, we've got a number of them. First off, the captain, obviously one of the most important people. We wanted to stress with the captain about working together as a team to get the right outcomes, which may include the timings for our chats and the tone at which we will communicate with each other. We sort of discussed that it's not a one-way street. It's not about telling them how it's going to be. It's more about working together. So, and then allow them to have an opportunity to sort of express what they want from you as well. Coaches, more pre-game as to what in particular they want us to focus on as referees, and whether you take it on board or not. I think our team sort of agreed is that it can start building relationships with the coaches. If the first thing you say is, "Hey coach, is there anything you want us to keep an eye out for you this game?" And if you actually get the bang one, even better. Halfback at scrums and breakdowns, and also working together. Quite important to be able to, because halfbacks are normally senior players as well, so if there's any issues going on, you can normally talk to a halfback, especially if you lose the captain. First 5/8 in terms of the offside lines, both set piece and in general play. Hookers, scrum setup, so I know there's front row there, but you're not going to talk to every front row. We sort of agreed that we'd sort of look at one of them, and Hooker's normally the leader of the front row. Kick-off players, or players who do the kick-offs, we want to make sure that the players are behind the kicker, and may even pick out one senior player in that side that you might be able to build a relationship. And if you're refereeing a Prem game, that may be a player you play also. Something to build a relationship with during the game.
Thank you, John. Has anyone else got anything to add in terms of those relationships that he brought up? No? Okay. Pick a number. Wonderful. Eastern Bay, what did you have?
We've got the tackle.
Okay, go ahead.
So our expectations on the tackle is the contact that it's made, the position, legal arms wrapped, the player is brought to ground, there's a clear release from both players, instructing them to roll east-west to the sidelines, and then the tackler must get to his feet and re-enter through the gate for him to play the ball.
Has anybody else got anything to add or any questions of them? So I've got a question for you, Dale. How did your group communicate to the tackler to roll east-west?
We used colour, number, action.
So how do you get them to roll east-west though?
Done it at the pre-match with the captain.
Nice. Good work. Well done. Pick a number, not 3.
1.
That's another Western Bay group. Western Bay 1, what did you have? Foul play. So representative, come up here.
I'll do this.
Set your standards early, set them real firm, and maintain those standards during the game. And make sure that you tell the captain pre-match what your expectations are as far as foul play is concerned. You also have to take into account the age group of teams, knowing the grade and understanding of the rules for that grade. Understanding what your foul play process is with the player and captain when a foul play takes place. Give yourself time and space to deal with that foul play. Liaise with your ARs. Even if your ARs haven't seen it, sometimes it just gives you time to sort your own mind out and have a quick chat to them and then come back and deal with it. Developing relationships with the captain pre-match is a big thing as far as dealing with foul play, because you can go back to him during the game to assist in managing situations. Consistency on foul play decisions, important. Stay calm for the whole process and make sure you deal with the paperwork within 48 hours. Get names, numbers of players, and hope they're correct.
Well done, Peter. Has any of the other sub-unions got anything to add in terms of foul play?
Yeah, Pat Grumble here. When you're speaking to a player that's done some foul play, don't point at them. Use the hand action that Bryce Lawrence showed us last year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good point. Oh, Peter, pick a number. What's left? 4. King Country, what did you have?
We had the scrum.
Yep, go ahead.
So it starts with our pre-match, seeing if there's suitable front row players and replacements. Then you start going into setting the foundation for how you want to set up. So that's just talking to your hookers and your props. And then also speaking with your halfbacks about how you expect the ball to be placed into the scrum, and possibly even your 10 on defensive scrums where they're meant to be standing or holding the line for you. Make sure during the game that when you're getting everything set, make sure that your 9 is ready before you call crouch. Ensure that you have a good bind. Ensure that the scrum is steady. Once the scrum is engaged and the ball is in, make sure that the pushing is safe, legal and fair. And make sure your 9 inputs without delay.
Good work. Anyone else got anything to add? So Jamie Bell's mentioned to make sure that you incorporate your pre-match talk includes the reserves as well.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Jamie. Yep.
That's why he's where he is and we're just here.
Yeah, that's why we're over here.
So who's left? Central Bay, you got one?
Yep. I know.
What did Central Bay have?
Line out.
Line out. Okay, where you go.
We determined that there wasn't too much need to talk about line out and pre-match, but the idea was to try and manage that is to set good standards in the first quarter. And so setting your not so much your mark, but certainly your gap gives you your management. You might talk to the hooker regarding the throw-in, just a word in their ear. In your case, you might also talk to the backline's first line out and about 10 metres. And for your own benefit, you might vary your position from front to back, middle, down at 6 at the back. But we didn't see it was something to be talked about too much at pre-match, rather managed in the first quarter.
Good work. Did you? Was there any consideration to talking to the bloke standing at the front of the line-out about the gap?
Yes, we did. Yeah, so that was the part of the 1 metre management, talking to the 2 players in the front to set the gap and then manage the players in the rest of the line-out, basically.
What's another way that you could do that so you're not having to manage the rest of the players?
I'll put it on the dudes in the line-out.
Nice, thank you. What about, was there any consideration to stopping the first throw to set that line-out up?
No.
Because you know how they always like to take their, want to throw their quick ones, throw the first one quick and go. And was there any consideration given to just pausing that so that you could get your chat across? Do you guys have an opinion on that?
There, Pat, this is Easton.
Yep.
Usually call time off, tell the hooker to hold the ball, and then set with the 2 front rows and the expectations that they keep their players in line with them at each line out on the mark.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't have to go to the whole time out stage. You could literally just have a quick whisper, just say, just hold the first one, bro. Have your quick chat to the line out at the front, to the guys at the front of the line out, get them to set their gap. Say, thanks, can you take care of that for the rest of the game? Sure, thank you. Hooker, down the middle, please. Not down your shoulders. And he goes, yeah, bro. And then you can say, okay, we're good to go. So something nice and short and sharp. Well, time off probably isn't required, but you could certainly get them to pause. Anybody got anything else? We've got one more group, I think. Righto, we got the final Western Bay group's going to come up and share about offsides.
Yeah, we had offsides, and we just broke it down into categories as to where offsides may occur. So we had pillars and posts, in goal, scanning, and just kicks from just general play. And basically, we just talk about setting our expectations into our pre-game talk, saying that how we're going to come across, how we're going to communicate it. So we had hand signals, eye contact, and just a quick verbal, or if needed, the whistle. We also talk about positioning, being at the right place, right position to identify your offside lines, and we can get the offside using your ARs if you have ARs. So just having ARs makes it a little bit easier, and also reacting to your contexts. So the D line for players, and yeah, pretty much it.
One job, one job. Has any of the other sub-unions got any further to add to what the last group just presented? No. Okay, so one of the things the author of this presentation wanted to emphasise is that the higher up the grade you go, the less you want to be talking in your pre-match. So, you know, a pre-match for an under-11s game will be completely different to a pre-match for a schools game or a secondary schools game or a senior game. But the whole relationship building doesn't stop. So I'm literally just going to read the slide. Your pre-match chats are a key element in setting up your game. They are often the first opportunity you have to build trust with the key stakeholders, coach, captain, front rows, and any key players. It is key that these conversations are confident as opposed to nervy, contain clear messages, are easy to follow, and you don't give mixed messages. They are short, succinct, and to the point, and they are around things that you can deliver on. So I want to highlight that point because I've heard a number of our speakers tonight have talked about setting standards in their pre-match. How do you guys feel about telling a captain or a coach what your standard is at the tackle? Anybody in the sub-unions got any comments to make on that? So I think the point that I'm trying to get across, just reading between the lines here, we can deliver on the way in which we're going to call the engagement process. Crouch, bind, set. That's something that we can deliver on. But we don't know what the players are going to do at the breakdown, so I can't tell you what I'm going to penalise and what I can't. I can deliver on the fact that I'm going to set a metre gap that is probably going to look like 1.5 metres, probably the width of these tables here. That's something that I can deliver on. But I can't tell the hooker where the middle of the line out is. Only he needs to get that. So what are some of the things that we can deliver on that we should be talking about in our pre-match talks? Because I've heard a lot of talk about, I'm going to tell them what I'm going to penalise, I'm going to set my standards early, which you can't do in pre-matches. When can you do it? In the first 20 minutes. So if you're having problems with offsides in the first 5 minutes of your game, what would be the best course of action to do? Iffy, what did you say? What were the ways in which you were going to communicate at offsides? You said 3 things. Verbal. Yeah. Eye contact. And the whistle. If you give a verbal and then you give an eye contact and then you give a hand signal and then you are still doing that 15 minutes later, what are the consequences on the referee if they're having to constantly manage players back on side? You're creating for yourself extra work. Yeah. I watched Shane McDermott referee a game 2 years ago, and he didn't speak for 9 minutes. But he certainly set his standards early. After he had about 4 penalties and 2 captains on final warnings. And then the game opened up and there was 80 points scored. But he didn't speak. And then I spoke to him after the game and he said, well, if I did a lot of talking early in the game, you paint yourself into the corner that you have to talk all game to get the same outcomes. He said it was so much work. But instead of talking all game to keep them on side and keep them on their feet, keeping the gaps open, he said, I just banged them a couple of times with some penalties. They soon figured out what my standards were, which is the whole topic of this presentation. So I'm heading down to Rotorua this weekend to referee that banner final. I'm looking for who refereed Nongatara on the weekend. Was that somebody from Central Bay did that?
Yeah, Stu Beckham.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that game. Probably not for the reasons that they're looking forward to me coming. Anyway, we're nearly done. The last thing we're going to talk about is our front row chat. So, in your groups quickly, how can you use your front row chat to assist you with your game to set up the first 3 or 4 scrums? You've got 2 minutes. What's important in terms of how you communicate and the decisions you give? Go.
We what is saying pre-match what? Basically, you know, what I find is get scrums and you just get 2 scrum up and you basically go, okay guys, we've got 2 scrum up, I need to stand set. So come on, you help me, I'll help you. Because you've got to make them understand that then if they're helping you, they're building into the whole plan. It makes it so much easier. And just put your stand, props to the stand right up close. You let them know again with the hands. Some point.
You bang early, you know, you free kick early, you penalise early, instead of having to talk. Because if you have to reset the first 5 scrums,
Can you bring up the back?
you've lost it. You might as well say, you know, they've gone early, free kick straight away, they've screwed. Don't reset them.
Okay, somebody write it down.
They can chat you.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, just write it down because I'm not talking to this one. We've got it written down.
Part of your pre-match and then your first sort of three scrums, I suppose.
Everybody could get by on that.
Pre-match, it is a general conversation. So you set out the saying before what you as a referee can deliver. They start bringing up their variables. Don't know if it's the scrums and how the other team's going to scrum.
Give them time. Don't rush. Give them time.
It can be easily done.
Okay, we'll quickly wrap that up. I'm just going to pick one of you out of the hat. Eastern Bay, can you tell me what was important in terms of how you communicate to your front rows?
Rangers coming up.
Damon here, Pat. I just get involved with.
Can you go again?
We get involved
You have to go. You just stand close to the laptop.
How's that?
That's better.
Okay. So we get involved with the front row players at the pre-match, just to get our standards about how we want the scrum to proceed to get it to completion.
What about the decisions you're going to give?
During the scrum?
Well, at the pre-match, how can you? What are you going to say or ask from your front rows to assist you during the game setup for the first 3 or 4 scrums around the decisions?
Okay, so we're just going to set. Well, we've said that we're going to set our standards. So we talk about our binds. We're going to talk about the calls through the process of getting the scrum set. And then when the scrum's set, we're going to talk about our positioning at that set stage. So correct heights, correct, make sure that their positioning is straight. And then we move to the halfback and talk about how and when the halfback is going to go.
I wonder if whether or not what you're saying is actually what you'll be doing, but not necessarily what you'll be talking about. Does that make sense? Because what you were saying is everything that you should be doing, but you wouldn't be speaking about all of that, would you? You wouldn't go into a pre-match and say, right, I'm going to be checking for the binds, and then I'm going to stand here, and then once the halfbacks put the ball in, I'm going to turn, and then I'm going to do this. You wouldn't be saying that, would you?
No. What we're just saying is we're just explaining how we want the scrum to proceed with the players.
Yep.
And just get them on board that we want to have a good scrum and get the game rolling from that point.
Yep. Well, yeah, that's better. What would you say to a front row in terms of if you had a reset and then the next one was the penalty? How do you delegate ownership on the decision back to the front row?
Well, it would be if we've had a reset, then we're going to have to make some sort of call about what we might infer is happening and try and get that corrected. If it doesn't correct, then we're going to have to do something else.
Correct. So what can you say to them after the first reset?
Exactly that. Like, guys, we're going to reset. We're going to have this work this way, like we discussed at the pre-match.
Yeah, now we're talking.
And if we don't get this, then we're going to have to go and do something else, which is obviously long arm or short arm, whatever's involved is.
Yeah. So that was what I was trying to get out of you was if you raise it at the beginning of the first scrum, you say, listen, gents, we talked about pre-engagement in the sheds. Let's make sure we stay disengaged until I say set. So when they engage on the very first crouch call or very first bind call, if you threw in a free kick right then and suddenly said to the players, look, we talked about this, it's a free kick. Or you can just break them up and stand them up and do it again. But at least you need to keep linking it all back into the pre-match that you talked about. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. Perfect. Well, but I'm conscious of the fact that I said this was 45 minutes and I've now 55 minutes. So I'm going to quickly shoot through. I've already talked about that quick conversation we would have with the front of the line-out player. So we'll skip over that. We talked about the key messages you need around discussing with the captain. And one of the things I find, if you go onto the field as the referee and you're having to manage 30 players, that's really, really difficult. An example I'm going to use is, in my position as a referee manager, I have 113 referees to deal with, which is really, really hard. So in the last 2-3 years, I've done a really cool, cunning plan where I put a whole lot of referee management group together. And under that, I've got a whole stack of volunteers operating underneath me. I think in total we've got 22 in our referee management group and portfolio holders. And what that means now is that I now don't have to take any calls in relation to gear. I don't have to take any calls in relation to senior appointments. I don't have to take any calls about coach education now. Can you see what I've done? I have delegated responsibility to certain aspects of my role to different people. And as the referee in a game, you can either deal with all 30 players or you can deal with 2 captains and maybe 2 halfbacks.
Yeah.
And maybe 2 hookers. So now instead of dealing with 30 players on the field, I'm only dealing with 6. And it becomes so much easier to manage small groups. Kyle McLean at a staff meeting the other day did a really cool diagram. He drew a circle, and inside the circle, he wrote me. So that was us. And then outside the circle, we had all the people that we influenced directly. So in my particular role, I've got the referee management group. I've got some referee coaches. I had, obviously, my wife was a big influence. And then I had, might have been a couple of committees. And then outside that, there was other people. So I don't directly influence them, but they end up reaping the benefits of what I do to those people. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is, as a referee, you want all players to cooperate, but you don't want to have to be talking to all 30 of them. So the easiest way for you to get control of 30 is get 2 good leaders on your side. 2 captains working really well with you, they take care of their 15 players. 2 kickers at the kickoff working really well with you, they keep their players on side at the kick. 2 first 5s at the lineouts, they keep their players back 10 for you. Now suddenly your job's a lot easier and you can deal with the big ticket items like the complex process at a tackle. And given that there's about 150 to 200 of them in the game, you need to be working your butt off at the breakdown. But there are opportunities in the game where you don't have to work as hard because you've managed to create relationships with 6 key people who can now do some of the heavy lifting for you. I've talked too much. Anybody got any questions on tonight's game setup? I think the 2 key messages is pre-match and first 20 minutes. Get it right in the pre-match and the first 15 to 20 minutes. The rest of the game should flow really nicely. Talk about Shane McDermott. It was a perfect example. I was sideline manager and it just worked perfectly. He just went hard early, took his foot off the brake, and they played really well, 70-odd points. Righto. Time to say goodnight. Thank you very much. I'll be contacting some individuals from all of the 3 groups for some feedback on what we did well in terms of not only the content, but the way in which it was delivered. Well done to everybody for getting on board. A big hats off to Dale, Kieran, and Gary for getting it set up so quickly. We're literally through this together over a 48-hour period from Sunday morning to now. So well done to all of you. Send me those photographs when you can, guys. Has anybody got anything else they'd like to say before we end the broadcast?
Nope.
Good session. Thanks, Pat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you, Peter Roberts. Smile. All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast. Thanks very much. Good night, everybody.
Good night.